Hello once again, my twinkling stars, and welcome back to yet another episode of your evening Reddit readings. I am your host Dusk, and in this video, we will be taking our first look into r/am I the Antagonist, a subreddit where we judge the morals and actions of the people that post their stories. In this video, we will be reading about a family grieving the loss of their child, a person who is holding a door open for a disabled person, and a person who pretends their grandma doesn't exist. This is a throwaway account, so I don't completely embarrass myself on my personal account, because this is a little crazy. My wife and I lost our teenage son earlier this year. It's been heart-wrenching, and my wife actually got fired from her job. She fell into a deep depression, as can be imagined. My brother has a girlfriend, and she dabbles in the spiritual world, and into all that kind of stuff. 3 nights ago, we had them over for dinner for my youngest's birthday party. In front of my depressed wife and my 2 young children, she says, "I can feel your son here." I say, "Excuse me?" She tells my wife that she can feel his presence there and just knows she can help us make contact and help us with closure. My youngest is confused and they start crying. My wife is on the verge of tears, and my brother is just staring at her in awe like it's this great thing. I told her she needed to stop that or she could leave. She got upset and said that she was trying to help us with closure, that I don't understand. I told her to F off and leave. My brother got angry at me and we got into an argument. They left and my wife is now upset, but thinks maybe I should have listened to her. She's desperate, and my brother is texting me how disrespectful I was to his girlfriend and that I needed to apologize. That's just not something you say to grieving parents. Am I the antagonist? OP, you are not the antagonist here. As of right now, the story was posted on March the 2nd, meaning that their teenage child died within the span of 2 months. Regardless of how old the child was, that's not even close to the amount of time a person should grieve. Honestly, OP, I'm surprised that you didn't react a lot stronger to this, as this is one of the few things you don't say to parents who lost their child, let alone in front of your other 2 children who lost their sibling. I'm sorry that you lost a child, OP, and I wish that your family gets the correct support it needs. I was walking towards the door of my local YMCA this afternoon as a handicapped woman in an electric wheelchair was coming up from another direction just behind me. I reached the door first and pull it open to hold it for her. As I turn around and greet her with a smile, she looks at me pretty harshly and just says, "You know, they made a button for that." She rolls her eyes and pushes the automatic door button and insists I go ahead. I know not everyone's the same, but is this typically seen as insulting? I wasn't trying to be patronizing at all. I simply wanted to hold the door for a stranger, which I regularly do for able-bodied people alike, but instead, I feel like an antagonist. OP, you are not the antagonist. Yes, there are buttons to automatically open the doors, but that doesn't mean that you still can't open the door for her to be nice. All you did was hold the door open for the wrong person. It's just as simple as that. My grandma has been living with my family since August, and she's planning on moving out into her own apartment in a few weeks. She's my dad's mom, and they don't really get along that well since my dad is the type of guy who speaks his mind about caring about offending anyone. He tells it like it is, and I respect him for that. My grandma also plays favorites between me and my 2 younger brothers. Last night at dinner, I was telling the family a story about some kid at school who started crying in the middle of class because his girlfriend had dumped him. Me and my dad were both making fun of him, and I knew that my dad would like the story since he was always making fun of men who cry and get emotional. My grandma yelled at us both to shut up, and she said to us, "You're both so hard to love sometimes." My dad just locked himself in his room after that, and I did the same because of how pissed I was. My grandma kept knocking on my door to talk, but I locked her out. And this morning when I was making breakfast, she tried talking to me, but I just ignored her again. I just took my Cinnamon Toast Crunch in my room and pretended she didn't exist. I'm upset that she pretty much told me that she didn't love me, which is messed up. You never turn your back on family, and she just did that. Am I wrong for feeling upset about what she said to me? Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first antagonist. When I first read the title, I was honestly going to say that you weren't the antagonist, but now that I've read your story, it sounds like both you and your dad are terrible people. First of all, you both make fun of men who act like human beings that cry when they feel sad, which the guy you were making fun of was reasonably doing after being broken up with. Secondly, you lied in your title by saying your grandma doesn't love you. She does love you both, but you and your dad make it hard for her to love both of you. I'm beginning to think why she plays favorites with your young brothers is because they're not toxic, immature people like you and your dad. The fact that the both of you locked yourselves in your rooms after being called out for being antagonists is just the final nail in the coffin that you both know you are guilty. Now, before I end this evening's episode, I realized that, as I was editing this video, that it's quite short. I don't really feel comfortable leaving you all on such a short video, so I decided to read you all another story where OP is wondering whether or not they are the antagonist for teaching their brother to drive. I am 23 years old, and my little brother Sam is 18 years old. He has been asking my parents to teach him to drive since he was 16. They constantly told him they'd get around to it, but that they didn't feel like he was ready yet. Personally, I went through the same thing with my parents for years, and I didn't get my license until I was 21 after paying nearly $1,000 for lessons myself. This hindered me a great deal because we don't live in a walkable city. It is difficult to get a job, commute to school, have a social life, and generally function as an adult without a car. So I told Sam once he was 18, I'd teach him. I did let him know that he wouldn't have the option of relying on my parents to pay for car insurance or anything, and he agreed. Well, I taught him. Granted, I didn't tell my parents I was doing this, which might have been wrong on my part. Yesterday, he passed his road test, and my parents are furious. They called me the antagonist for going against their wishes. My dad also said he was looking forward to teaching Sam after he lost the opportunity to teach me. In my mind, I waited until Sam was an adult, giving my parents ample opportunity to teach him. And after what happened to me, my intention was to help Sam prepare for adulthood in a timely fashion, so he didn't have to be held back by this the way I was. Am I really the antagonist? OP, how are you the antagonist for thinking that teaching your brother is bad in any way? It's as you said, your parents were too lazy to teach both of you, and you also mentioned that you live in an area where knowing how to drive a car is extremely necessary. You've practically spared your brother from going through the same difficult process that you went through. Heck, I was more or less in Sam's shoes, asking to learn how to drive when I was 16. Except my parents actually taught me instead of my siblings, so your parents have no excuses to say that they couldn't teach Sam how to drive. And finally, you're both legally adults, so you both can technically do what you want. Congrats to Sam on passing his test, and good job to you on being a supportive sister. And with that, the sun has set on yet another episode. If you enjoyed it, then feel free to leave a like and comment below on your own judgments that you have of these stories. Finally, subscribe to my channel to help stay tuned for any upcoming videos. It's fast, it's free, and it will help my channel grow. Until next time, my twinkling stars, have a good night.